What's up, you guys? Большое доброе утро. Good morning. I haven't done one of these videos where I like driving and talking, but I was just I watched Jeffrey Schaefer's video, and I think it was kind of like a retort to Jim Rizzoli, you know, making a video pointing out to Jeffrey, like, you know, what's good, what's bad, the Bible, Jesus. Never forget this about Christianity. This is why I hate Christianity so much. It's not the teaching of Jesus that I'm against. It's that everybody I've ever known, everybody I've ever talked to, everybody that I've ever seen, the only reason they go into Christianity is because as soon as you become a Christian, you now have an excuse, an obfuscation to you now have an excuse to obfuscate the responsibility of physically fighting evil here on earth. So people will go into Christianity and their inaction to do anything for real, not in the metaphysical, which is what praying is. And then they can blame it on Christianity, or they can blame it on Jesus being sacrificed. Like, oh, he was the sacrifice and he died for our sins, and so I will follow that part of the Jesus story, but I won't follow any other part. And I always try to remind people that if you're gonna follow the Jesus, then you have to do what Jesus did, which was he actually put his body in harm's way, and he stood up against Caesar. He stood up against the bankers. He stood up against the corrupt religious institutions, and he was killed for that, for sedition, for standing up, for being a rebel, for being like in today's words, you know, he was a nonconformist. He was a rebel rouser. He was somebody that actually physically went out there and participated in this life, and that's why they killed him. That's what the story is. But it's just a story. It's a good story, but it's a story. And if you go through all of Christianity or all the religions, there's people a lot smarter than me that have written books, and you can look it up on the internet. All of these stories come out of India. So you're basically practicing an ancient form of Hinduism. And at the end of the day, it's all used to control people. So you've got like the Jeffrey Schaefers and the Diane Kings, who was in a cult. Don't forget that. Diane King was in a cult. And the Jim Rizzolis, who are decent people, right? They're likable people. They're decent people. Diane's a little questionable. I think she has a lot of hate in her heart. And I think we should pray for her discernment and for love to, you know, embrace her heart. But at the end of the day, you see what these religions do to these people. They keep these people from actually participating in the real life battle, the real life struggle, which is life here on earth. And it's a perfect example when all these people talk about is these stories in a book that came out of ancient India, and you can see it keeps them in a perpetual. It keeps them in a perpetual state of revolution. A revolution is a circle. That's the big joke behind the word revolution. They're like, we're gonna have a revolution. It's like, yeah, go ahead. It's just gonna take you right back to the beginning. If you know, words mean things. And one of the big Masonic jokes with the Bible and all that stuff is there's coding all through it to mock people that actually take it at face value. Like even when they were talking about the book of Esther, it's S star, E star, Eastern star, the morning star, Lucifer, which is the god that they follow. Lucifer in Greek was Prometheus. And you could trace all of this stuff back to one source or two sources and see that regardless of how you interpret it, regardless of how you practice it, it's meant to keep you from not participating in real life. And then the cowards that go into these religions use it to obfuscate any responsibility of taking action. It's God's plan. It's written. Don't do anything. There's a plan here. There is no plan. The secrets. There are no secrets. You know? And you'll never wake people up to this. And like, I feel really bad when I see like a Jeffrey Schaefer, for instance. You know, you can tell he's just beat down from life. He's got his books and he reads them and it makes him feel good. And then, he takes a path that he thinks he should be on, and then a Jim Rizzoli and a Diane King comes along and tells him that that's not the correct path to take, this is the correct path. And it all goes back to that Christian nonsense that's based on a guy who was killed for participating in the real life struggle that we all face every day, which is battling the system, which is battling the government, which is battling the Caesars, which is battling the corrupt religious institutions. And they seem to skip over that part. And then next thing you know, you're too old to do anything. And then you're looking at yourself in the mirror going like, man, I'm a fucking retard. I fell for it. And then you keep trying to make sense out of something that's not meant to make sense. It's one big Masonic joke. The whole entire kit and caboodle is a big Masonic joke. The Bible is written esoterically, and the people that take it exoterically, which take it at face value, and these stories of a whale, people being caught up inside of a whale, and putting all the animals in the world on one boat, and just all these nonsense stories, this allegory and metaphor for things they can't wrap their head around. And they take it at face value, and it makes them look retarded. But then it also makes them look retarded because they're skipping over the most important part of the religion in the tools that you would need to get out of this revolution, this circle, this perpetual state of following your tail, which is that their Jesus, no matter how you interpret it, participated. Fought, he struggled, and he eventually died for it, according to the Bible, which is all bullshit, but it's a good story, and you could use it to catapult yourself to at least give you a little bit of balls to step out on the battlefield and participate. Your non-participation, if there was a heaven and hell and you were going to be judged, your non-participation would get you sent to the place that you wouldn't want to go, which is hell. Heliopolis. Heliopolis in Greek was the trash heaps, the dump. But people don't want to go there. They want to take their English translation, and it's just nonsense. And then if you really want to split hairs, there's a guy that he speaks ancient Greek. There's still a lot of people that speak it, but not as good as this guy. His name's Ammon, and he goes through the Bible and reads it in ancient Greek, which is what it was originally wrote in. And he shows you that the Jesus character, and it's probably like, I don't believe that the stories are real, but the stories, whoever wrote it in ancient Greek made the Jesus and his crew out to be pedophiles and drug and sex cult people and just really sick, twisted shit. In the Greek translations tell you, the ancient Greek translations tell you that the sacrifice of this guy that they call Jesus, the putting up on the cross and killing him, actually had to do with him being a pedophile and them executing pedophiles in the time of whenever that book, the Bible, was wrote or written. So, these things aren't meant to be taken seriously. You exist, I exist, I am. that's the big Masonic joke. But you get too old and you're stuck in your ways, and you think you're gonna get to a place called heaven by not participating. It would be the exact opposite. If you weren't gonna participate, you wouldn't get into heaven. A famous rabbi once said, it's not just your soul that's going to be judged, it's what your soul did. Or it's not just your soul that's going to be judged, it's what your soul saw and did. If your soul saw evil and it did nothing to stop it. Everybody sees all the evil going on around them, and they obfuscate the responsibility of stopping it, and they use the Jesus nonsense from the Bible that all we got to do is pray, turn a blind eye, and we're cleansed of our sins. That's a sin. That what that rabbi was saying is that the sin of seeing and noticing something bad or evil and not stopping it is a sin in itself. It is going to get you judged. No matter how you try to cut it, there's no way to dice it. And another thing with Christianity is that it's for weak people that don't want to put their body in harm's way, like the guy they supposedly worship did, right? It's obvious that he put his body in harm's way, and it's sad, it's sickening. So that's where my hatred is. My hatred for Christianity and the Jesus nonsense isn't because they're good people or it's a good story. It's because the people that take that use it as a shield to deflect responsibility. If you know something bad is happening, or you comprehend it and you process it, and you go, okay, something evil's going on, then now you would be obligated to do something about it. And so they use all that Jesus stuff and that Christian stuff to not take up that responsibility, to take up the sword to do battle. They take on the shield to hide behind and deflect and reflect, and it's sickening and it's sad. Christianity needs to go, in my opinion. The Christians themselves are disgusting. Like, everybody now is on the Jesus Christian train, right? All aboard the Jesus train. And it's like, you guys had your opportunity to stand up and do the Jesus thing during the whole COVID thing, and none of you did. You didn't even go to your churches anymore because they were closed down. So how am I supposed to take you serious? And how am I supposed to take it serious when you see the system who created the Jesus nonsense and the Christian nonsense to keep people from participating in this life, this battle against good and evil? When you see them pushing all of this Jesus stuff, when you see those churches full, when you see the magazines at the store with the title, The Story of Jesus, they pull the Jesus Christian nonsense out when they need to use it to pacify the weak people, which make up the majority of the people, 99%. So I don't know. I don't even, like, I'm not going to put this video on my YouTube channel because I don't like talking about it, but I'll upload this because, it's at least something to talk about, and I know people will watch it. But it's sad if you're an old person and you're doing this Jesus nonsense. You're only doing it because you're disappointed that you're too old to do anything now to go out there and physically fight evil, and you just keep hiding behind that shield. You know that you took the coward's way out. You took the coward's route out. And that's the exact opposite of what this Jesus guy supposedly did. And you keep pushing this nonsense when you see the nonsense of the Christianity being pushed by the system onto everybody, and you still can't figure out it's the number one tool in the evildoer's playbook to keep people from not participating in this life. And it's fucking sad. And you're going to end up like a Jeffrey Schaefer or a Jim Rizzoli and a Diane King sitting around talking about stories in a book written by con artists. Con. Why do you think the word constitution, like you think you have rights? No, it's a con. You're being con. Bible's babbles, a bunch of nonsense. And it comes out of India. Why do you think right now they're merging all this stuff with India, and there's all these Indians coming here? They're getting ready to merge Hinduism, which is where Christianity came from, with Hinduism. And that's where you get the caste system. Look up the Brahmin system. They have 5 layers of people. And right now we're living under that caste system, and they're using the Christian nonsense and the Jesus character to control people. But if you follow Ammon, who translates ancient Greek, which is what the Bible was originally wrote in, and you agree with his translations, which the top scholars of that language agree with, this is a pedophile drug sex cult led by yours truly, Jesus. Mark 51:52. You know, he was caught in the park with a little naked boy by the Roman soldiers. What was Jesus doing in the park with a naked boy after dark? You know, if you were caught in a park naked with a boy by the police, you'd be called a child molester. So I'm not bending my knee to a child molester. Thank you, hell Satan.